This week, we're talking about goodness. And in all honesty, it really matters the way that we talk about goodness. It's the next fruit of the Spirit in this series. And, well, why does it matter how we talk about it? Because you guys are young. Some of you are in middle school or high school, or some of you adults are just as mature as middle schoolers. But it matters because what we say to you now is going to impact how you understand these words moving forward. I was actually having a conversation with my mom last week, and she said, "Why are you so intentional about what you say to the youth? And why is it that you, what did she say? You don't shy away from throwing some heavy stuff at them?" I said, "Well, because it's the first mention principle. I want to try to give all of you the best things that you can learn from. Because there's going to be other people coming along and giving different interpretations of Christianity that may not be as good, in my opinion. And so it matters what we say to you. It matters how we talk about goodness." Now, why does it matter how we talk about goodness? It's because goodness is so wrapped up in morality for a lot of us. And so if we're ever bad, we look at ourselves and we call ourselves evil or something worse, you know? So it matters how we talk about goodness. A lot of us have been raised to think that goodness is inherently tied to morality and what you do. Not many of us were taught about goodness in relation to what we are. And we've talked about this type of thing before, that a lot of the adjectives in Christianity, yeah, you could say they have to do with what you do, but actually quite often they're about what you are. There's the principle of first mention. First mention just means that when you have a word, especially like goodness, where's the first time that word is used in the entire Bible? Well, Genesis 1. When God looks at the creation, he says, "Ooh, that's good. Ooh, that's good. That's good." And then humanity comes along, and then everything else, he says, all of it, it's very good. Well, that means that, at least in that sentence and in that book of the Bible, Genesis, especially chapter 1, goodness is attached not to what things do, but what they are. How have some of you thought about goodness? I'm going to wager most of us probably thought that goodness is attached to what we do, not what we are. One of those two things is in our control, and the other one is not. I'm kind of happy that my goodness is not necessarily in my control, that God actually looks at the totality of who I am, what I am, and says, very good. Now, I may not always act in a way that's in accordance with what I am, but that's what all of us have to deal with. Now, we've got to try something out here. We got a great instrument right here, right behind us. Let's see if we can use this to help understand our relationship to goodness, this fruit of the Spirit for this week, right? So, okay. When you're first learning how to play an instrument, you might do this, right? Just press random things around. You might even at some point try hitting more than one. Well, if you press one, that's a note. But when you have three or more notes at the same time, that's a chord. That was C, but then C major. C sharp minor. But the thing is, goodness is something to grow into also, not something to live up to. Because we have something deep within us where we often will say, "I'm not good enough." And then we shame or guilt ourselves or other people for not living up to goodness, rather than seeing goodness as something to grow into your entire life? Well, nobody sits down at a piano and immediately plays all the right notes, right? But you don't look at somebody and say, oh, wow, you're a terrible piano player. It's like, no, it's the first time they ever sat down at a piano. But after a little bit of work, they might actually go and say, maybe make just a few notes, and then finally get it. See what I mean? Goodness is something that we should give ourselves grace to grow into. Because a lot of us, especially here on the main line, in this achievement-oriented culture, a lot of us feel like we can't start things unless we know we're going to be perfect at it. And a lot of us will never start trying things, unless we know we can master it immediately. And that's unfortunate because skills take time to develop, just like being a Christian. It's something to grow into your entire life. It's not something to immediately live up to perfectly from the start at the first moment where you think you can accurately say for yourself that Jesus is Lord. Now, one of the things that is really difficult that all of us have to learn how to do all life long, okay? And a little bit like some of you guys are a little too young to do this, really. In order to learn how to play the right notes in life, sometimes we've got to take a look inside. Take a look inside ourselves and understand how we work, how we move, how we breathe, all of these things. I mean, inside of a piano is just incredibly intricate. There's a lot of strings, things are happening. Did you know a piano is a percussion instrument? It's not a string instrument. Well, it's a combination of the two, but it's percussion. Just like a piano, you need to know how the insides work in order to maybe play it really well. The same thing with yourself in your own very life. It really helps to understand your own inside, the soul that God gave you, with all of its nooks and crannies, beautiful things, and its wounds. You've got to learn how to look at all of those things so that you can know how you operate, so that you can grow into your own goodness. Now, okay, so some of you have got little brothers, little sisters, older sisters. I'm sure you butt heads sometimes. Totally normal. Everybody does it because navigating life in this world is difficult. We all have different impulses and dreams and hopes and wants of what to do in an afternoon, and sometimes they butt up heads with other people. Well, the more time you spend working with and loving other people, you can grow into those abilities. Jesus, as far as I know, is the only person that was born into this life knowing how to play the chords of life perfectly from the start. But that's not the rest of us, and that's okay. So what I would like to invite you to do is give yourself some grace, because God already does. Give yourself some mercy when you make some mistakes, because God already does. And maybe we all need to learn not to shame or blame ourselves too much, because God doesn't. And God knows that we're all still growing. And listen, some of you are going to have growth spurts, and some of you will probably be taller than your parents in a couple years, if not already. But your parents are still growing too. They're still growing in their own goodness. So give them some grace, give them some mercy, love them well. And let's close with just one final thing. I was having a conversation with someone this week, and we were talking about how morality can sometimes get in the way, especially people that are really hard-lined about how you have to live up to being a Christian or the principles of being a Christian, And we agreed that the people that helped us the most, the people that helped us to grow, to heal the most, are not the hard legalists that shamed and blamed us for doing things wrong. The people that really helped us to grow, to blossom, to heal, are the people that loved us even when we were breaking the rules. Morality is good because it can protect us, but that's not really where the goodness is. Goodness is when we love one another through our mistakes. Goodness is when we show ourselves grace and mercy when maybe we don't want to. Goodness is so much more than what we do. It's about what we are. And so I invite you this week to grow into your own goodness just a little bit more. And by doing that, maybe you'll see the gospel working its life out inside of you, but you know what? When you work out or when you grow into your own goodness, that's when you and I kind of become an embodied version of the gospel to the rest of the world. Because let's be honest, we all know this world could use a couple more good people in it. So that's all for this week. Thank you so much. Grace and peace be with you, and may God lead you in goodness in all the days of this week. Be well.